It is just before 6:30 in the morning, the 13th of September, 1814. The rain has not arrived yet, but you can feel it sitting low over the Patapsco, heavy and close. Out on the dark water, a line of British warships swings at anchor about 2 miles off the fort, just past the reach of the American guns. The closest of them is a squat, ugly thing called a bomb vessel named Terror. On her deck, a crew works a mortar the size of a kettle, a black iron mouth tipped toward the sky. A man you cannot see touches a match to a fuse, and a 200-pound iron shell climbs off the deck and arcs up into the gray. For a few seconds there is almost nothing, just the wet wind and the creak of rope. Then the shell comes down inside the walls of a small star-shaped fort on Locust Point, and the morning splits open. Inside that fort, 1,000 men flatten themselves against brick and earth and wait for the next one. Miles down the river, on a small truce ship he is not allowed to leave, a 35-year-old lawyer named Francis Scott Key watches the first flash and does not yet know that he will spend the next 25 hours certain his country is about to die. He does not know that he is about to write the most famous question in American history. He only knows the bombs are falling and that somewhere behind the smoke there is a flag, and that he cannot see it. I'm Warrior Shaman, and this is War Stories Behind the Song. This is Oh Say Can You See? When I wrote Oh Say Can You See, I did not want to write the national anthem. Everybody already knows the anthem, or thinks they do, 2 lines of it sung before a ball game. What I wanted was the war story underneath it, the 25 hours of terror that the song was actually born from, told by the people who lived it. So I built it as 4 voices, the lawyer on the water, the major on the wall, the British officer watching his victory turn to ash, and the flag itself, finally answering the question it has been asked for 200 years. I wanted you to hear that question the way Key heard it, in the dark, not knowing the answer, with the whole country hanging on it. To understand why one flag mattered that much, you have to back up 3 weeks. On the 24th of August, 1814, a British army under Major General Robert Ross marched into Washington and burned it. The White House, the Capitol, the Library of Congress, the Treasury, all of it put to the torch while the President and his cabinet fled into the countryside. The American army had been routed so completely at Bladensburg that day that the British mocked it as the Bladensburg races because the militia ran so fast. The capital of the United States, a nation only 38 years old, lay in smoking ruins. And the British were not finished. Napoleon had abdicated that spring, which freed up thousands of hardened veterans from the war in Europe, and Britain turned 3 of those columns loose on North America at once, one toward Lake Champlain in the north, one toward New Orleans in the south, and one aimed straight at Baltimore. Baltimore was the prize. It was the 3rd largest city in the country, the busiest port on the eastern seaboard, and home to the fast privateer schooners, the Baltimore Clippers, that had been gutting British merchant shipping across the Atlantic. The Royal Navy had a name for the place. They called it a nest of pirates, and they intended to burn it to the waterline, homes and businesses included, worse than what they had done to Washington. But Baltimore was not Washington. For more than a year, a Revolutionary War veteran named Major General Samuel Smith had been turning the city into a fortress. Volunteers dug 3 miles of earthworks across the eastern approaches at Hampstead Hill, bristling with over 100 cannon and tens of thousands of troops. Out in the harbor, Commodore John Rogers scuttled more than 20 merchant ships in a line across the channel, an underwater wall meant to stop the British fleet from ever reaching the inner harbor. That sunken line did exactly what it was built to do. It forced the British bomb ships to fire from long range, from the edge of their reach, where their accuracy fell apart. On the 12th of September, about 4,700 British troops landed at North Point and started the 14-mile march on the city. That is where the invasion began to come apart. Riding forward to investigate the skirmishing, General Ross, the man who had burned Washington, was struck by an American musket ball and killed. Baltimore tradition credits the shot to two teenage sharpshooters, Daniel Wells and Henry McComas of Isquith's sharpshooters, and tradition adds that neither boy survived the day. Whoever fired it, the effect was the same. The British land assault lost its commander before it ever reached the city, and command passed to Colonel Arthur Brooke. Now the whole plan rested on the Navy, on smashing the one fort that guarded the harbor mouth. That fort was Fort McHenry, a five-sided brick star built in 1798, and inside it stood about 1,000 men under a major named George Armistead. Against them, Vice Admiral Alexander Cochrane brought a fleet of roughly 19 ships, and at its heart, 5 bomb vessels, Terror, Volcano, Meteor, Devastation, and Etna, plus the rocket ship Erebus. The rain came in hard that morning, and because of it, Armistead did not raise his great flag. He raised the smaller one, the storm flag, the one built for foul weather. And at about 6:30 on the 13th, the bomb vessel Terror opened fire, and the longest day in the young country's life began. The song opens the way the battle opened, with a hard count of the facts, spoken into the dark. September 13th, 1814. The British fleet opens fire on Fort McHenry. 25 hours of bombardment. That number is not dramatic license, it is Armistead's own official report. 25 hours from the morning of the 13th to the morning of the 14th. 1,500 shells, 700 rockets. Those are the widely accepted figures, somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 mortar bombs and 600 to 700 Congreve rockets. Each bomb a 200-pound hollow iron sphere packed with powder and timed to burst in the air over the men below. One flag, one question: is she still there? That is the whole song in one line, because that was the whole night for Francis Scott Key. Now the first voice steps in, and it is Key himself on the water. "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?" That is the first line of the original poem, untouched, the line Key scrawled on the back of a letter as the sun came up on the 14th. Washington's in ashes and the fort's in their sights. He is not speaking in the abstract. He had been at Bladensburg, he had watched the army break, and he had watched the Capitol burn 3 weeks earlier, and now the same army has Baltimore in its sights. The black hangs heavy on the water, only flash and powder smell. This is the literal experience of his night. Key was roughly 8 miles down the harbor on the truce sloop, and once darkness fell, he could see almost nothing. Only the burst of a bomb lighting the sky, only the smell of black powder rolling across the water. That is the true meaning of the line everyone sings without thinking. The bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. The explosions were not the danger he was watching. They were the only light he had to see the flag at all. "When the twilight finds the ramparts, we'll know if Baltimore fell." Ramparts comes straight out of the original anthem, and it means exactly what it says, the defensive walls of the Star Fort. Key understood the math. If that flag was gone at first light, the fort had fallen, the fleet would pour into the inner harbor, and Baltimore, and maybe the country, was finished. Was nothing but a timid face before the Capitol knell. Here is the turn that makes this verse personal. Francis Scott Key had opposed this war. He was a Federalist who once wrote that he would rather see the flag lowered in disgrace than have it stand for dishonor. The Capitol knell is the death bell tolling over Washington, and the timid face is his own, the man he was before the city burned. "Watching my brothers hold breaks the coward's spell." The word is brothers, not countrymen, and that is deliberate. Watching 1,000 ordinary men refuse to break under 25 hours of fire shames him out of his own hesitation. That is the engine of the whole song, a divided man made whole by other men's courage. And that pulls us straight into the chorus. No matter the waver division or view, Key was, by his own admission, divided against his own country before Washington fell, and the song reaches that division forward into every era since, every time Americans are fractured and something forces them to remember what holds them together. There are those who will never falter the red, white, and blue. Falter is a stronger word than fall. Falter is ongoing. It means refusing to break across ours, which is precisely what the garrison did. Let them burn what we built, let them darken the sky. Burn what we built is Washington, literally. Darken the sky is the bombardment, literally. 1,500 shells and 700 rockets blotting out the morning over the fort. Our flag still flies, we will hold her high, for the rocket's red glare no doubt in the air. Here the song does something clever with the most famous line in American music. Rocket's red glare is Key's, word for word, the orange-red exhaust of the Congreve rockets fired from Erebus. But where Key wrote bombs bursting in air, the song writes no doubt in the air, threading the doubt and division theme right through the anthem's most sacred line. The enemy is not only British iron anymore, it is the doubt that can tear a country apart from the inside. Gave proof through the night that our flag's still there. And then it lands almost exactly on Key's original, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there, because in the end, the history and the lyrics say the same thing. Now the second voice takes the wall, and this is Major Armistead. I see the horizon, Union Jack waves in the cold. Armistead looking out at a fleet of nearly 20 ships, every mast flying British colors, on a cold Chesapeake morning. The order is given hold means hold. Now, hold means hold is the song talking, not Armistead. There is no record of him barking those exact words, no stirring one-liner shouted from the wall, and the song is not pretending there was. What the record actually gives us is better, because it is real. When the first shells came down, Armistead climbed up onto a parapet in the open and ordered his gunners to return fire, and for a few minutes they scored real hits and the whole garrison cheered. Then the British pulled back out of range, the American shots started falling short into the water, and Armistead had to give the hardest order a fighting man can give. He ordered his own people to stop shooting, take cover in the moat, and simply endure it. Not advance, not retreat, not fire back. Just stand there and take it, hour after hour, and do not let that flag come down. And here is the part that gives that order its real weight. Holding was not a choice Armistead made for effect. It was the only option on the board. He had no line of retreat that meant anything, because the entire defense of Baltimore funneled down to this one-star fort at the mouth of the harbor. The sunken ship line across the channel, the shape of the water, all of it came to a single point. If Fort McHenry held, the fleet stayed out. If Fort McHenry fell, the channel opened, the warships poured into the inner harbor, and Baltimore was finished. There was no fallback that saved the city. The fort was the line. So when the song says hold means hold, it is pointing at the literal math of that night, not bravado. Hold or lose everything behind you. That is what holding actually cost at Fort McHenry, and it was not a battle cry. It was 25 hours of swallowing it, while Admiral Cochrane, who had bragged to his men that he would force the fort to surrender in under 2 hours, watched his 2 hours stretch into a full day and a night with the colors still flying. And it nearly took Armistead with it. He wrote his official report to the Secretary of War 10 days later, barely able to hold the pen, wrecked by fatigue and exposure, and he was dead 3 years after that, at 38 years old, used up by the night he refused to lose. Crown was heavy 200 pounds of chance and circumstance. This line carries 3 meanings at once. The crown is the British Empire bearing down on him. 200 pounds is the literal weight of a single mortar bomb. And the crown is the weight of command on Armistead's shoulders because he was carrying a secret nobody else in the fort knew. His powder magazine was not bomb-proof. He knew it, and he had to keep knowing it, alone, while the shells came down. Inside that magazine sat around 300 barrels of gunpowder, tons of it, enough to turn the entire Star Fort, every wall, every gun, every one of his 1,000 men, into a smoking hole in the ground and a ring of wreckage floating in the harbor. And late in the bombardment, it happened. A shell came down out of the dark and struck the magazine directly. It broke through the roof, caved in part of the ceiling, and came to rest in among the powder. And it did not go off. That is the whole battle, right there, balanced on a single bad fuse. If that one shell burns the way it was built to burn, there is no flag at dawn, no anthem, no Fort McHenry, no story. There is a crater where a fort used to be, and the British rowing into Baltimore over the wreckage. The distance between the United States having a national anthem that morning and having a mass grave was about the width of a hair. He said it himself, in the flattest words a soldier can find for the worst hours of his life. He called it a most distressing circumstance, one that left them exposed to a constant and tremendous shower of shells without the remote possibility of doing the enemy the slightest injury. Chance and circumstance is the honest name for what kept them alive that night. And the moment the danger passed, Armistead did the only thing he could. He had the powder hauled out of the magazine and spread along the outer walls so that if the next lucky shell ever found it, it might kill some of them, but it could never take all of them at once. Give as good as we got stopping the barge advance. At about 1 in the morning on the 14th, the British tried to slip past the fort. Roughly 1,200 men in some 20 barges rowed for the harbor under cover of rain and dark. Half of them got lost in the storm and rowed up the wrong branch of the river. Captain Charles Napier pressed on with the rest, but his men fired signal rockets that lit up their own position, and Fort Covington and Battery Babcock opened a crossfire that tore them apart. A British voice was heard across the water that night, crying out that they would be blown out of the water, and they were, barges swamped and sunk, men in the river for weeks after. That was the one moment all night the Americans got to hit back, and they made it count. 25 hours of cannon cascade. The full duration, again, straight from Armistead's report. A cascade of fire that shook windows in Baltimore and was heard as far as Philadelphia, 100 miles away. When it was done, Yankee Doodle played. This is historically true, and it is one of the best details of the whole battle. The fort's musicians played Yankee Doodle in defiance once early on when American shot first struck a British ship and the garrison gave 3 cheers, and again at dawn when the great flag went up. Music as a middle finger to an empire. And that, right there, hits home for me. It is the whole reason I make this music in the first place. 200 years before there was a warrior shaman, before there was an amp or a microphone or a single line of metal, men under fire reached for a song, because a song is how you say we are still here when there is no other way left to say it. Music has always been a weapon, and it has always been a memory. It carries the story long after the people who lived it are gone, and it puts the history in your chest instead of just on a page. Those fifers played Yankee Doodle so the British would hear it. I make these songs so that you will not forget. And that instinct never died. It just got louder. 200 years after those fifers, American troops rolled into the worst fighting of their lives with the same fire in their ears. Drowning pool pounding through the headsets on the way into the fight. Hell's bells screaming off the speakers in the streets of Fallujah. Enter Sandman shoving a 19-year-old Marine toward the door he does not want to walk through. Different war, different sound, the same exact thing that Drummer Boy was doing on the wall in 1814, turning fear into fuel and noise into nerve. And here is the part that gets me every single time. Francis Scott Key did the exact same thing first. He sat off that harbor, watched a battle, and turned it into a song. A poem set to a tune, born straight out of defiance, and that song became the anthem of an entire country. Sit with that for a second. The United States opens every game, every ceremony, every hard and solemn moment with a war story behind a song. Key wrote the original. He just never had a name for what he was doing. I do. I am standing in a line that started on the deck of a truce ship in 1814 with a lawyer, a scrap of paper, and a flag he could not take his eyes off. The chorus comes back here, heavier, and you do not need it explained twice. You already know what it means. But it means more now than the first time, because you have stood on the wall with Armistead, you have felt the magazine almost go, and the line "Our flag still flies" has teeth in it that it did not have an hour ago. No matter the waver division or view, there are those who will never falter the red, white, and blue. Let them burn what we built, let them darken the sky. Our flag still flies, we will hold her high. For the rocket's red glare, no doubt in the air, gave proof through the night that our flag's still there. Then the song does something most war songs never dare. It hands the microphone to the enemy. The bridge is a British officer's voice, bitter, beaten, watching it all fall apart. Ross is dead, the barges sunk, and the smoke above them swirled. Every word of that is fact. Ross was killed at North Point the day before the bombardment even began. The barge assault was a disaster, and the man speaking knows the campaign is over. The Yanks hoisted their colors, bloody flags unfurled. This points at a real and stunning eyewitness account. A British midshipman aboard the frigate Hebrus later recalled that as the last ship spread her sails to leave, the Americans hoisted a superb and splendid ensign over their battery and fired a single gun of defiance. The word bloody in a British mouth is a curse spat at the sight of that flag. 30 feet of defiance in the morning light. The garrison flag stood 30 feet tall, and Armistead had ordered it built a year earlier for exactly this, so the British could not miss it. "Weigh the anchors, it's done, boys, we lost this fight." By 9 in the morning on the 14th, the fleet weighed anchor and stood down the river. The eastern offensive was finished. They never came back to the Chesapeake. And now the last voice, and it is the one no one expects. It is the flag herself. A widow's hands and a 13-year-old's sting. The flag was sewn by Mary Pickersgill, a 37-year-old widow and professional flag maker, working with her 13-year-old daughter Caroline, her teenage nieces, and Grace Wisher, a 13-year-old African-American indentured servant. The sting is the needle, the sewing needle as a weapon of war, the flag built by women's hands that would go on to defy an empire. Built me big enough to be seen by the king. Armistead's own words, when he ordered her, were that he wanted a flag so large the British would have no difficulty seeing it from a distance. 30 by 42 feet, over 50 pounds of English wool bunting, raised up a 90-foot pole by 9 to 11 men. They threw 1,500 rounds to put me on the ground, but every hole just made me breathe. I never once came down. Now, here is where the song takes its boldest artistic liberty, and I am not going to paper over it, because the truth is a better story than the myth. The flag the British actually fired at all night was the smaller storm flag, raised in the rain. The giant garrison flag, the one now hanging in the Smithsonian, did not weather the bombardment at all. Armistead raised her at dawn, after the guns went quiet, as a deliberate act of defiance aimed at the retreating fleet. So the song fuses the two flags into one defiant her, and what it is pointing at is the deeper truth. Same fort, same colors, same refusal to come down. And honestly, the real story hits harder. She did not survive the storm. She rose after it, on purpose, just to make sure the Empire saw exactly who had won. I answer the question on that lawyer's lips at dawn. Key was a lawyer, and his poem is built on a question. 200 years later, the flag is finally answering him. "Oh, say, can you see me? I was here all along." The most famous opening line in American music flipped into the flag's reply. Key asked, "Oh, say, can you see?" The flag answers, "Yes, you can see me, because I never left, and all along makes her timeless. She was there in 1814, and she is still here now." The final chorus lands with everything behind it now, every voice, every fact, the lawyer's shame, the major's stand, the Empire's defeat, and the flag's answer, all of it loaded into the same 6 lines. No matter the wavered division or view, there are those who will never falter the red, white, and blue. Let them burn what we built, let them darken the sky. Our flag still flies, we will hold her high. For the rocket's red glare, no doubt in the air, gave proof through the night that our flag's still there. Stand inside that fort with me for a minute, because the song moves fast and the men inside it did not. It is the middle of the night, and it is raining sideways. You are pressed into the dry moat at the base of the wall, in the dark, in the wet, with the cold soaking through wool. You cannot fire back. The fleet is 2 miles out, past the reach of your guns, and your commander has already said so out loud, a most distressing circumstance, he called it, that it left them exposed to a constant and tremendous shower of shells without the slightest possibility of returning the injury. One of his officers, Captain Joseph Nicholson, put it plainer. He said they were like pigeons tied by the legs to be shot at. So you lie there and you listen. You hear the distant cough of the mortar 2 miles off. Then nothing for the longest 20 seconds of your life, while 200 pounds of iron climbs a mile into the sky and comes back down somewhere. Sometimes it bursts overhead and rains hot fragments across the parade ground. Sometimes it buries itself in the earth and the whole fort jumps. Once, that night, you hear it come down on the magazine, on 200 barrels of powder, and you wait for the end of the world, and the end of the world does not come because the fuse failed and the shell did not burst. And the rockets, you hear those too, the shriek of the Congreve coming off Erebus, the orange-red light smearing across the low clouds. They are wildly inaccurate. They kill almost no one, but at 3 in the morning, soaked and pinned and unable to shoot back, accuracy is not the point. The point is that the sky is on fire and you cannot make it stop, and you hold anyway. That is what hold means. Hold actually costs. It is not a line in a song. It is 25 hours of lying in the mud while an empire tries to erase you and not running. As the smoke clears and the last sail catches the wind, the song pulls back out to where it started, on the water, looking at the flag. From that harbor to the dirt of every man the battlefield gave. That harbor is this harbor, the Patapsco, the exact patch of water where the anthem was born. Every man the battlefield gave is every American who has died under that flag since, from this fort forward. Yes, she still waves for the land of the free and home of the brave. And there it is. The song opened on the first line of the anthem, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light," and it closes on the last, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Everything in between, the burning Capitol, the lawyer on the water, the major on the wall, the dead general in a barrel of rum, the women with the needles, the flag that rose after the storm. All of it lives in the space between the two lines almost everyone can sing and almost no one knows the story of. The flag did not stay on the pole. Armistead kept her, and she passed down through his family for 90 years, getting smaller the whole time as people clipped pieces off for souvenirs, until what was left came to the Smithsonian, where she hangs today, 30 by 34 feet. A fifth of her lost to history, watched over by a conservation effort that ran more than a decade. But the colors she stood for never came down. In 1948, by proclamation of President Harry Truman, Fort McHenry became one of only a handful of places in the United States where the flag flies day and night, around the clock, without ever being lowered. Every morning at that fort, rangers and visitors and school kids together haul a 15-star replica up the pole because it is still too big and too heavy for one set of hands, just like it was in 1814. And every flag raised over every base, every ship, every forward operating position, every flag folded into a triangle and handed to a widow at Arlington, runs in a straight line back to a widow's needle in Baltimore and a major who said hold means hold. Mary Pickersgill's hands, George Armistead's wall, Francis Scott Key's question. They are all still flying. She was never just cloth. She was the answer, and she was here all along. This has been War Stories Behind the Song. I'm Warrior Shaman. Until next time, honor the history, respect the craft, and never forget the people who lived it.
September 13th, 1814. The British fleet opens fire on Fort McHenry. 25 hours of bombardment, 1,500 shells, 700 rockets, one flag, one question. Is she still there? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light Washington's in ashes and the fort's in their sights? The black hangs heavy on the water, only flashing powder smell. When the twilight finds the ramparts, we'll know if Baltimore fell. Was nothing but a timid face before the Capitol knell. Watching my brother's hold breaks the coward's spell. No matter the waiver, division or view, there are those who will never falter. The red, white, and blue. Let them burn what we build. Let them darken the sky. Our flag still flies. We will hold her high. For the rocket's red glare, no doubt in the air, gave proof through the night that our flag's still there. I see the horizon, Union Jack waves in the cold. The order is given, hold means hold. Crown was heavy, 200 pounds of chance and circumstance. Give as good as we got, stopping the barge advance. 25 hours of cannon cascade. When it was done, Yankee Doodle play. No matter the waiver, division or view, there are those who will never falter. The red, white, and blue. Let them burn what we build. Let them darken the sky. red and blue. Let them burn what we built, let them darken the sky.